Hi, welcome to Prime Recap. After landing on a mysterious island, a team of cameramen must struggle to survive amid bizarre monsters while trying to save the actress who has been captured by a giant gorilla. Today we'll recap the story of the movie, King Kong, from 2005. The year is 1933 and the United States is going through an economic recovery process after the crisis of 1929. To make a living, actress Ann Darrow and her colleagues strive to attract viewers to watch their performances, but in recent times, audiences have been getting smaller and smaller. Manny is the owner of the theater company and a good friend of Ann's. Although he loves his work, the man is completely broke and informs his employees that he will be leaving New York. Upon hearing this, Ann is disappointed and wonders what she will do to make a living from then on. So she goes after a new job opportunity. Meanwhile, on the other side of New York, filmmaker Carl Denham tries to convince some investors to help him with the production of his newest film. He tells that he has found a map that reveals the existence of an unexplored island where there is a primitive world never before seen by modern society. Carl intends to travel to this island to shoot his film, but the investors ask for a moment to discuss the feasibility of this project. When the filmmaker leaves the room, the men talk among themselves and come to the conclusion that the best thing to do in this situation is to cancel the film. What they didn't realize is that Carl was listening to the whole conversation behind the door, and before he could be formally notified about the cancellation of his film, he leaves with his assistant. Carl orders Preston to contact the entire film crew and inform them that they will be leaving in a few hours. In this instant, the filmmaker discovers that the protagonist of his film has given up the role and urgently needs to find a replacement. As he was about to enter a studio, the man spots Ann across the street and soon realizes that she is the woman he is looking for to star in his film. Carl then chases her down the street and invites her to lunch. While Ann is eating, he tells her the story of the film he is about to shoot and invites her to be his main star. Initially, the actress turns down the role, but when she finds out that Jack Driscoll is on the team, Ann changes her mind. Later, the pair arrive at the pier and Preston informs his boss that the police are on their way to stop them from boarding. So the group rushes off on their adventure. By the time the policemen show up, the boat is already far from shore. Since there are not enough accommodations for all the team members, Jack is forced to stay in the warehouse where the cages that Captain Engelhorn and his gang use to imprison the wild animals they capture on their travels are kept. Bruce Baxter is also on the ship and will be acting opposite Ann as her romantic partner in the film. Inside his cage, Jack continues writing his script when he is surprised by the arrival of Jimmy, who brings him dinner. The young man was found hiding on the ship 4 years ago and has since become part of the crew. The next morning, Ann goes to introduce herself to her new coworkers and finally gets to meet Jack Driscoll in person. One night, while Carl and his assistant are talking among themselves, Hayes appears and tries to warn them about Skull Island. The man claims that if the filmmaker decides to take his crew there, none of them will make it back alive. However, Carl just ignores him and follows his plan, because nothing is more important to him than his movie. Lost in the middle of the ocean, Engelhorn ends up leading his crew into the middle of a fog. Since they cannot see anything that is in front of them, they end up crashing the ship into a large rock. As he tries to get out of there, the captain realizes that there are numerous rocks surrounding the ship and tries to avoid them all, until his ship runs aground. Everyone is worried about the situation they have gotten themselves into, but Carl can't disguise his happiness as he realizes he has just found Skull Island. After the accident, the ship's hull is riddled with holes, and while the crew tries to fix it, Carl decides to take a boat and row to the island with his recording crew. Upon arriving there, the group is confronted with countless human skulls, and the filmmaker films every detail. After walking for a few hours, they find a place apparently in ruins, but soon discover that there are mysterious people living there. Suddenly, Carl spots a girl and tries to communicate with her. The man hands the girl a chocolate bar and, not knowing those people, the young girl is frightened. She bites the invader's hand and runs into the arms of the old woman, who frightens Carl with her grim appearance. At that moment, the filmmaker looks around and realizes that there are countless natives staring at him. It is not long before the first tragedy strikes and Mike is eliminated with a spear through his body. Determined to eliminate that group, the natives begin to surround them and Jack attacks them to protect Ann. However, he is unable to fight off all those men and the attack continues until the captain and his crewmen show up and use their firearms to fight off the enemies. When the tribe flees, the men help the survivors return to the ship and begin to get rid of all the extra weight in the hope of being able to sail again. Meanwhile, the natives hatch a plan to invade the ship and capture one of the passengers to serve as a sacrifice. Upon arriving on the ship, the intruder drops one of his belongings and makes his way to Ann's quarters. It doesn't take long before Jack finds the object made of skulls and realizes that the ship has been invaded. Worried about the woman he has fallen in love with, The playwright rushes to her room and soon discovers that Anne has been taken away. When the crew finally manage to unhitch the ship, Jack reveals the sad news to everyone and the men feel obliged to go and rescue the actress. Meanwhile, the woman is being taken to the sacrificial altar, where she will be offered as food to Kong, the king of those people. After picking up a large quantity of weapons and ammunition, the sailors row, once again, on their way to the island. By now Anne is going through the last phase of the ritual, in which Kong appears to pick her up. However, upon seeing the woman, the giant ape acts differently than expected and decides to take the young woman away instead of devouring her. As soon as he hears Anne's screams, Jack and his team rush to her aid. However, Carl is the first to arrive and is shocked to see this gigantic creature. When he tells his colleagues what he has seen, they all prepare for a hunt and the filmmaker takes his camera to record the whole adventure. Meanwhile, Anne tries to save herself and pierces the monkey's hand with the bone prop that was placed on her neck, but ends up being captured again and taken away. Upon reaching a certain point on the trail, Jack finds a giant footprint on the ground and soon realizes that the actress has been captured by a giant monster. Meanwhile, Carl is exploring the place in search of interesting images for his film and finds a herd of dinosaurs. The filmmaker asks Bruce, the protagonist, to approach the animals. However, the man runs away and decides not to risk himself in the midst of those beasts. It doesn't take long before Carl goes after them as he is being chased by the Brachiosaurus. Even at the risk of being crushed, the man refuses to leave his camera behind and must run with his equipment in hand. While trying to escape, part of the team is trampled by the creatures and Bruce hides behind a rock in hopes of saving himself. However, the actor is eventually found by another animal that starts chasing him, and he must join his colleagues to escape. When they reach the edge of a cliff, the rocks begin to crumble and some creatures end up falling into the abyss, carrying off part of the film crew. The survivors continue on down the canyon until Bruce starts shooting at the dinosaurs and ends up causing a serious accident. Due to the attack, the creatures run over each other and the men must flee before they are devoured by the raptors. When she arrives at her hiding place, Kong tries to wake Anne, but the woman pretends to be dead in order to escape from the creature unnoticed. She sneaks along the ground and hides behind a rock, but when she finds a loophole to escape, she is surprised by the giant ape, who appears and prevents her from escaping. In an attempt to distract him, the actress starts dancing and doing all kinds of acrobatics. However, when Anne decides to stop the show, the gorilla gets nervous and begins to destroy everything around him. When he calms down, he leaves and allows Anne to go on her way. Meanwhile, the group of crew members walk through the forest until they find a cave. Realizing that there is a scary creature inside, Hayes asks his colleagues to flee while he tries to put the monster down. It is not long before the man is captured by Kong and thrown off a cliff. Seeing that his best friend has been eliminated, Jimmy goes into despair and the team tries to destroy the gorilla while Carl films the entire battle. However, when the animal starts swinging the log where the men are, the filmmaker loses his camera and has to hold on to the branches as Kong knocks the big log over in the middle of the canyon. Meanwhile, Anne is running through the forest looking for her colleagues when she comes across a giant lizard devouring the carcass of another animal. The woman stealthily hides behind one of the trees, but is soon caught by the creature, which begins to chase her. In an attempt to hide, she gets into the roots of a tree, but the creature does not give up and keeps trying to reach her. The woman was about to be devoured when suddenly the monster is dragged out and has her body destroyed. At that moment, Anne is attacked by giant centipedes and has to flee, but as she comes out of her hiding place, she realizes that an even more frightening monster is waiting for her. Anne is chased by a T-Rex, which, even though it is carrying a prey in its mouth, goes after the young girl. She tries to camouflage herself among the leaves so as not to be captured, but soon realizes that another predator is right beside her, ready to grab her. Luckily, just as Anne was about to be devoured, Kong appears and strikes the dinosaur. The battle would be easily won if another Tyrannosaurus didn't show up to attack the gorilla, who ends up getting bitten on the arm. The animal is cornered when a third enemy appears and attacks him from behind. Desperate to save the woman's life, Kong throws several punches at the monsters while trying to stop them from getting closer to Anne. During the duel, the ape manages to knock the dinosaurs off a cliff, but ends up being pulled along with them and, during the fall, the actress gets separated from her protector. She hangs amidst the roots and close to one of the dinosaurs, which tries to devour her at any cost. So Kong immediately starts climbing the rocks and runs to help his new friend. When Anne's life hangs in the balance, Kong attacks the beast and the woman ends up in the clutches of the other T-Rex. Just then, the roots break off and the creature falls into the swamp below. The actress has nowhere else to run, and Kong once again arrives to protect her. The gorilla runs towards the giant reptile and eliminates the creature, breaking its jaw in half. After winning yet another battle, Kong gives his victory cry and reaffirms his title as King of Skull Island. Now that Anne is safe, the ape can leave quietly, but the woman decides to accompany him. On the other side of the island, Jack wakes up after the crash and goes to help the few members of his team who are still alive. It is already getting dark and dozens of giant insects begin to approach, so the group is attacked by the creatures and Lumpy ends up having his head devoured. In an attempt to help his friends get rid of the attack, Jimmy grabs a gun and starts shooting at the creatures. However, it doesn't matter how many bugs the young man manages to eliminate, because new monsters keep appearing. The trio is about to lose the battle when Captain Engelhorn and other crew members show up to save them and distract the monsters so that their friends can escape. After losing so many companions on this insane mission, everyone plans to return to the ship and go home, except Jack. The man is willing to continue risking his life to save Anne, and Carl manages to convince the captain to try to capture the monkey. The plan is to use bottled sedatives that are on the ship to erase Kong and take him to New York. Unaware of the filmmaker's plan, Jack tries to slip unnoticed under the giant bat den until he reaches Kong's throne. At that moment, he sees Anne and the monkey sleeping peacefully. After waking up, the woman tries to slowly get out of the animal's hands so that he doesn't notice her movements, but Kong wakes up and starts attacking Jack. In the midst of the battle, the bats get scared and attack the gorilla. Meanwhile, the couple takes the opportunity to escape. Jack uses a vine to get down the mountain, but the monkey manages to pull them back up and the playwright decides to hitch a ride with one of the bats to make his escape. Furious at having lost Anne, Kong goes after them and chases them through the forest. When the couple reaches the agreed upon location, Jack yells for Carl to lower the bridge, but the man intends to wait until the gorilla approaches. However, Preston decides not to follow his boss's orders and cuts the rope. In this way, the couple can join the rest of the crew. Upon meeting his crew, it doesn't take long before the actress realizes what they are up to, and when Kong shows up aiming to take her back, he ends up being attacked and captured with a net. Jack and Anne try to stop their colleagues from going ahead with the plan, but it is too late. When he realizes that there is nothing more to be done, the playwright drags the woman towards the ocean. Believing that the young woman is being taken against her will, Kong gathers all his strength and manages to break free from the trap. The creature chases the group to the beach, where boats are waiting to take them to the ship. Captain Engelhorn throws a harpoon in an attempt to stop the beast, and then Carl throws a bottle of sedative in the beast's face. Unable to protect her friend, Anne watches Kong get knocked down and a deep sadness invades her soul. Weeks later, Broadway announces the show of King Kong, the eighth wonder of the world. Hundreds of people crowd the box office to see the giant gorilla. For the first time, Carl was able to realize a highly successful project that earned millions of dollars for him and his team. Jack is in the audience to honor his friend's work and feels sad when he remembers Anne. Since they left the island, the woman has not wanted to invest any more in her relationship with the playwright, because she has not been able to forgive him after all that has happened. Carl then takes the stage and tells the audience that they are about to see the story of the adventure he went on, in which he lost 17 companions. To honor the lives of these brave men, the filmmaker says he decided to share their trajectory with the whole world. As the curtains open, everyone can see Kong chained up on the stage and powerless to resist. The animal, who was once considered king in his world, is now completely unmotivated and becomes Carl's puppet. Next, the filmmaker introduces Bruce as the hero who saved the woman from the clutches of that beast. After the performance of the dance group representing the natives of Skull Island, it is time for the sacrifice, to which the young actress has been given as an offering to the gorilla. The moment the woman takes the stage, Jack realizes that this is not the real Anne, and Preston tells him that she refused to participate in that play, giving up all the money she would have received for her participation. When Kong realizes that this is not his friend, he is furious. Meanwhile, the real Anne is participating in another play for a living. When the photographers enter the scene, Kong becomes even more agitated and uses all his strength to try to free himself. Believing it all to be part of the show, the audience is impressed, but soon everyone realizes that the situation is out of control and desperately runs away. As soon as he manages to free himself from the chains, the gorilla grabs the actress who is posing as his friend and throws her away. While everyone is running away, Jack is caught by the monkey, who begins to chase him ferociously. After leaving the building, Kong causes terror in everyone he meets on the streets and attacks approaching vehicles. The beast goes out looking for Anne and captures all the blonde women he finds on his way, believing that one of them might be the one he is looking for. Upon hearing rumors about what is going on, the actress runs toward the concert venue and Jack uses a car as bait to try to drive the monkey out of town. Immediately, Kong follows the man through the streets and, after a long hunt, manages to corner him. After the first blow, Jack faints, and the gorilla calms down when he realizes that Anne is approaching. With the woman in his hands, he finally finds peace by walking slowly through the empty streets until he comes to a frozen lake. In that instant, Beauty and the Beast dance together and have fun under the moonlight, until the moment Kong starts to be bombarded. Startled, the animal quickly flees and scales the buildings in order to hide from its hunters. He continues his escape until he reaches the top of the Empire State, where he can finally enjoy a moment of peace next to the person he loves most in the world. However, it doesn't take long before warplanes approach and start shooting at the animal. Kong then climbs to the top of the skyscraper in order to lure his enemies away from Anne. However, the woman decides to go after him. Even after being hit by numerous attacks, the animal stands firm in its mission to eliminate those men and uses all its energy to attack the planes. Knowing that Anne is in that tower, Jack decides to go get her and knocks out the guards to get up there. Anne is climbing the stairs to reach the gorilla and ends up having an accident. The young girl is about to suffer a deadly fall when Kong manages to save her and gets her safely inside the tower. In that instant, the attacks continue and the gorilla realizes that he will not be able to survive that battle. However, Anne decides to stay by his side until the last minute and manages to get the pilots to cease their attack. By this time, it is too late, as Kong is extremely injured. After saying goodbye to his good friend, the animal gets tired of fighting and ends up falling from the skyscraper. At that moment, Jack arrives to rescue his beloved, and the woman runs to embrace him. Minutes later, the entire town is gathered around the creature's lifeless body and everyone is vying for a photo next to King Kong. Seeing the sad end that the animal took, Carl comes to the conclusion that it was not the planes that killed him, but his love for Anne. So what did you think of this movie? Leave it in the comments below. And if you liked the video, please like and subscribe for more movie recaps. See you next time.